Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another of our LAPADA leaders that we launched in April for lockdown. And really what this has been about is it's given us an amazing opportunity to go to leaders in the fields of art and culture and learn a little bit more about what they're doing, how they kind of built their business, and also some sort of practical things to improve our lives at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait a few seconds before I introduce you to our speakers today, just as you come in from the waiting room. But I hope you'll enjoy today's conversation, which will take just under an hour. So thank you. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by two entrepreneurs, or artpreneurs, as some people call them, in the tech field. And so one, Kate Gordon, who is founder of London Art Studies, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, actually has gone from the kind of migrating to a face-to-face business to an online, and then Anna Lowe, who launched Smartify. So if I start with Kate, there's quite a few things to go on. What I want to say as well, actually, before I get into the biogs, is that you will see at the bottom of your screen, those of you who are new to this, there is a Q&A area and there is a chat function. If you want to pop any questions in for our panelists, put them into the Q&A. And when we get towards the end of the conversation, we will go through those and ask questions along the way. And then the chat function, if there's anything that you want to kind of add, or also Gillian, my colleague who is manning this, as well as Kate and Anna, they may wish to put some links to things that are talked about along the way. So check the chat function and you'll see links to London Art Studies, you'll see links to Smartify and everything as we go along. So Kate Gordon, who I met, I believe, in Olympia quite a long time ago when you were at Sotheby's Institute, before you had the brilliant idea of starting London Art Studies. She is CEO of London Art Studies. It's also just won a fantastic accolade in the Best in the World Art app in the Webbies, which I think sadly had an amazing host. Is that right, this year? And it had to be online, so it wasn't quite the glamour fest you were looking forward to.
It would have been lovely to attend. And by the way, thank you firstly for having me here today. But I think had the ceremony gone ahead in person, I'm sure I would have embarrassed myself massively. I think I would have held on to Tom Hanks's ankles or something and been dragged around the room. But Michelle Obama was due to present and Tom Hanks was receiving an award, fortunately not in my category, but also the Rolling Stones and Billie Eilish. So it was the closest I think I'll ever get to the Oscars. But well, they did a beautiful job online.
Massive congratulations for that. And I'm so sorry you can actually get to be on the red carpet and attend that, because that would be fantastic. The other things that Kate also does is she writes the Art World column in London's Evening Standard. She's also co-founder of the Association of Women in the Arts, which is a fantastic association for those of you who are female and interested or participate in the arts. It's something to look at. They do some fantastic events and have been very active during lockdown. It's just too much to put in my diary, I have to say. Yeah. Kate is also on the board of Chelsea and Westminster's Hospitals Art and Design Committee, and recently as well was appointed chair of the Serpentine Patrons, and also is a trustee of the Art Academy. So welcome, Kate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We also have Anna Lowe joining us. So Anna has done a huge amount in her rather short career. She's a little bit younger than both of us. She is co-founder and director of partnerships at Smartify. And for those of you who don't have the app yet, really I suggest that you do download it either during this webinar or afterwards. It's a multi-award winning app which helps people discover and share art. But we'll hear a lot more about that as we go on. Previously, she worked in arts education for the London Boroughs of Camden, and also amazingly, which I didn't know about before the biog, was in the National Fine Art Museum in Argentina, which must have been really interesting, and you know, we hopefully will have time to hear a bit about that. She's also a trustee at the Tate and the youngest ever trustee of a UK National Museum, which is really quite an amazing accolade, and also was listed on the 2019 Forbes of 30 under 30, so a real kind of powerhouse. So thank you to both of you for joining me this morning. What I thought we'd do, which maybe is probably people are getting slightly sort of overdone with this, but I do think it's quite important to sort of look at this sort of the state of the nation. And now that we're in lockdown too, I think, you know, it's quite interesting looking at this sort of how art and antiques have moved into this online world. Some people had already made the move, but both your businesses really were ahead of the curve, the COVID curve, let's call it. And I just wondered, and you know, I'll start maybe with Kate, in terms of doing this, has this stood you in good stead to sort of weather COVID, and have you even maybe reaped some benefits of this strange world we find ourselves in? That's first to Kate.
Thank you. I would say firstly, it is a very strange world, and thinking about 2020, I would have given a very different answer in March or April than I'm giving today. I think the world is just moving at such a speeded up pace. I know how very fortunate we were to go online. We transitioned, I'm never sure if that's the right word, but we moved online in 2018. We were, as you say, an IRL, a face-to-face company from 2011 till then. And we've been very fortunate that we were online first, because I'm not sure we could have put out the quality of what we do today had we been forced suddenly to rush to online. So we usually film in a studio, which obviously is off limits for us right now. So we've pivoted again. And in the very first weeks of lockdown, we started getting a lot of calls from our subscribers. And it was always the Frida Kahlo video. They would always ring about Frida Kahlo and say, do you have any supplementary teaching material? Is there anything I can share with my children? So that's our big lockdown project. I think we had always planned to do a children's platform, and lockdown for us has just again speeded that up. We're doing it very differently. We are planning to launch early next year. So that was our lockdown for us. But it has been a challenge, and I'm sort of overwhelmed right now. I think everybody would say that. And I think I did hear a lovely phrase about moving online for a lot of more traditional businesses who haven't quite done it or in the throes of doing it right now. And the phrase is adjacent possibility. And I think that's how we have to think about the move to online right now. We have to think of what it can do for us, perhaps not what we're missing. So Freya, I don't know if that answers a little bit of where we are.
It absolutely does. And I totally think it's fantastic that you're launching something for children. And I can really see how, you know, those of us who are parents who are trapped in this kind of educating from home cycle, that actually any of those materials that are away from the rather dry curriculum activities that we were forcing our children to do was, you know, actually a real win. And I used some of the Tate materials actually. They did a lovely thing where you could make a Jackson Pollock out of 3 different types of chocolate, which probably wasn't learning huge amounts about art, but it was, you know, it was pretty good. But Anna, to you, have you kind of managed to sort of reap some opportunities from this? Because you're in a slightly different position, that, you know, you are an app that is designed to be portable, that kind of gives you access to art, you know, up close really, and allows you to go further into some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure how many people on the call kind of have used Smartify. I've seen it before. It might be useful to kind of first show a little kind of clip just to show what the platform's like. Is it now a good time to share that?
That'd be fantastic. Take us through, and then we'll do an overview of London Art Studies afterwards. So take us through Smartify. That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So before I just show the video, so Smartify is a platform that's been described as the Shazam and Spotify of art. So basically the simple idea that, like Shazam, it recognizes music, Smartify app will recognize an artwork or a sculpture or a piece of architecture just using the camera of your mobile phone, and then pull the information kind of into your smartphone as soon as kind of you've basically scanned that piece of art. I'm just going to share my screen quickly to kind of show you a little bit about what that looks like. I hope you can see that now. I'll just play this I'll just pause that there. So you can get a sense of kind of how the app works from that video. I think when we started Smartify back in 2015, the idea of using smartphones in galleries and museums was still kind of seen as, a bad thing to do, kind of a distraction. And our vision was always to kind of reframe the use of mobile phones as actually an engagement tool rather than a distraction, a way to actually kind of get more information, take the information home with you, and then kind of have that deeper experience before and after that physical visit. So we've always tried to kind of, I suppose, bridge the gap between the physical and the digital in everything that we do. So yeah, in terms of kind of during COVID-19, obviously it's been a really difficult time for museums and galleries with a lot less people on site. But the first thing for us was really to help make the physical venue kind of COVID secure. So moving to your own mobile device rather than those kind of old-fashioned rented audio guides, moving away from paper maps, not having to kind of lean into artworks to get the information so you could kind of stand back and just scan. So all of these things are obviously helpful in terms of just hygiene and safety. And then the next step for us is helping those partners that use the platform to kind of reach a larger audience online and create kind of flexible content for that. So I can speak a bit more about that later, perhaps.
Yeah, and actually, you have a shop aspect as well, do you? And does that sort of help? Because that's an area, obviously, that museums, not only are they losing visitors, but so much revenue is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that actually we developed this year because previously museums kind of hadn't, a lot of people kind of hadn't really moved beyond their own websites and their own e-shops. And then this year you see a lot more, in Instagram as well, wanting to kind of integrate your shop into Instagram, integrate your shop into Smartify. So we basically built that feature to kind of meet the demand for that was coming from our partners. So now if you scan the sunflowers, you'll be able to see all of the kind of the mugs and the merchandise and the posters that you get from that. And same, we worked with a number of galleries during the Mayfair Art Gallery weekend. And again, scanning artworks and being able to kind of contact the gallery directly when you're kind of engaging with the content.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you so much. So Kate, there are quite a few different sort of education providers, let's say, from the Art Society to Sotheby's Institute to various things. So why did you launch London Art Studies? And also do give us a sort of, I think you've got something to show us as well. So give us a little chat and then share something with us.
Well, as you know, I was an arts producer making programs for CNN. And I was always very grateful to have a curator take me around before we filmed. So I got wonderful private guided views from these curators. And I realized how much it changed my view of what I was seeing. So for example, an art gallery possibly full of contemporary art, I would just dismiss and say, I don't like it and just turn away. But when somebody who's knowledgeable takes you through and teaches you, you see it with new eyes. So the impetus for launching London Art Studies, I had just left Sotheby's Institute, which is where we had met back in 2008. I actually remember the date, and a long time ago. And it was chance. I was thinking back over my career, and quite a few things have been chance. And I was offered the private dining room at Kaufman's at the Barclay to just set up word of mouth art classes, which we did. And we had, I think, 14 people, from the very beginning. We expanded. And then again, it was an offhand comment from somebody who I didn't know very well at all, who said, but you're a trained TV producer. You should be filming this content. People around the world who want to see it. And that was the light bulb moment. So that's when we made the move online, which did take us about 3 years, because as you said, there is a lot of competition out there and there's great films. I think what we do is something slightly different, and perhaps we can run the film now to give people a taste of it. Gillian, Freya, what do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I think fantastic.
I won't screen share because So much easier.
Oops.
Hopefully Gillian will.
But this was a film that we put together during lockdown, actually. So this was
okay.
remote produced.
Okay.
Oh,
Is it coming? You right,
Yeah.
Gillian?
sorry, this is
Lowe.
my new laptop. There we go. Is that work?
And it's 1 minute, everybody. So is there audio, Gillian?
There should be.
I am so sorry. It's supposed to be hooked up to. It says the audio is playing. Let's see. Oh,
Then don't worry. Truly not to worry. You're going to see Richard
I tell you
speaking there.
what, why didn't we carry on? Gillian,
Yes,
if you go on mute and see if you can work it out, and we can
Sure.
carry on talking. How about that? Is
Sure.
that all right? Because I think it actually is really nice. I mean, I've watched it, and I think it does give a really good summary, and also it shows you the caliber of some of the lecturers that you've got. So from the kind of, fantastic curators, but also to have an art market specialist like Georgina McPherson as well. So
Georgina Adam. Yeah.
Georgina Adam.
Freudian.
Georgina McPherson is like
I'm
so sorry.
Sotheby's.
Sotheby's, yes,
Yeah,
who I work
so-
with on events. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Georgina. If you're listening, I'm really sorry because we do know each other very well.
Yes.
Anyway, so
We've
we've what I think we might do is you've both kind of you've obviously migrated onto online, Kate, and you've started launching online straight away and in the app, which is actually a very competitive environment. And I know there were quite a few other art-based apps who were trying to probably steal a march or coming up with something similar at the time. So what are the key things you need to get right, do you think, to build a successful online art brand? Starting with Anna.
I mean, you're right, exactly as you said. The idea of kind of image recognition, identifying artworks wasn't just us. I mean, I think that at that time in 2015, it was kind of the first, some early steps in augmented reality, and that idea of using the phone camera to identify things, that was kind of in early stages. I think one thing that was always really important to us, and I suppose it comes from my background in arts education, was the storytelling, having rich stories. So it's not just about scanning an artwork and getting a price tag, which I think is what a lot of people kind of thought of, which is like that Vivino. I don't know if you've used that wine app where you kind of scan a bottle of wine and get the price, and then you can tell your waiter, you're charging me too much. That's, for me, it's not appropriate in the art world. People want stories and context. So for us, a bit like Kate, it's having the quality content from museums or galleries. Or even, when we work with hotels who have amazing art collections, still it's about the storytelling around that. So we create, audio guides kind of that have been used almost like podcasts during lockdown, so that people can kind of follow walking tours around the city. They can look at, an amazing catalogue of artwork. So it's not just about, kind of price tag. So definitely storytelling is key.
How many users do you have for the app for the moment?
We have about 2 million. You can use, the app is a free app. So you can use it just without a kind of email address and without an account. We have about 900,000 people who have a kind of an account and are using it to kind of collect things and build their personal collections.
And just one of the things, did you want to share a bit more to show, because I haven't actually seen the content, but does it show your international reach as well? Or
yeah,
maybe share the rest of yours while we try and get the London Art Studies one sorted, and then
sure. I mean, I can just share a few more, I guess, slides that I kind of have prepared. So I mean, in terms of the way the app works, when you open the app, you kind of see a map, so you can see all the different venues that are nearby you. These green kind of little pointers here were for a Mayfair Art Gallery weekend kind of promotion. So they had all the galleries in Mayfair were kind of all green, and there was like an art tour that was developed by London art critic Tabish Khan to kind of take people around and kind of engage them in the different gallery spaces. The tours feature looks a little bit like this. This is from the Watts Gallery, which is in Surrey, which is an amazing museum of George Frederick Watts. They were already using Smartify as their kind of audio guide tour technology, but during the lockdown, they actually started kind of getting their curators to produce kind of at-home content, and we have a very flexible kind of back-end dashboard where you can manage all of your artworks and any kind of content, and they were publishing the audio files and kind of editing them each week, and then also embedding that into their website, embedding it onto Instagram, so that it was kind of cross-platform. And then just very easy to kind of create these kind of tours, which they were doing on a weekly basis, and had huge engagement. I mean, I think they had kind of 5,000 people listening to it in the first day. And I think that's, that is the power of a platform. And it's, the same with Kate, rather than having to go to each independent museum's website to get content, which is okay if you're Tate, but it doesn't work so well if you're a smaller gallery or collection. It's better to kind of have that mass appeal, like a Netflix or a Spotify.
Yeah. And actually amazing as well for some of the smaller independent museums that don't have that kind of level of budget to be able to kind of play at the same level as the big boys, if you like. I mean, that's an amazing platform to be able to give people.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's what a lot of our clients would say. And then the final thing I would highlight is access to information. A traditional wall label or traditional catalogue would, just be kind of in English, and there wouldn't be, whereas for a lot of people, perhaps they have low vision, they find it hard to read. With Smartify, you can change the font sizes because it's obviously on your phone. You can have your screen reader, so you can touch the text and have it read out to you. We have transcriptions automatically for all of the audio. So all these kind of things help to also kind of give a more accessible feature, whether it's kind of multilingual across different countries, or just having for people who just prefer to kind of access content on their phone because they can control the size and everything like that.
Amazing.
I think I've figured out how to do this. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Let's go ahead. Let's try again.
1 minute. That's all.
1 minute.
London Art Studies provides award-winning online classes for art lovers. Whether it's great works delving into the masterpieces, dangerous women and the stories of pioneering female artists, or the art market, discovering the secrets of the industry, all this can be enjoyed from the comfort of your own home. Our series are carefully created and presented by our expert lecturers, so you're learning from the very best in the field.
There are no symbols. The emphasis is on the sheer physicality and strength of these women.
Research shows that 10% of these dealers account for 60% of the market, so an enormous chunk goes to these very large galleries.
He presents us with normal situations until we can see quite clearly that there's something illogical about what we're seeing. Join a growing community with new content every week and discover the world's greatest artists for the first time, or all over again. Change the way you look at art forever with London Art Studies.
Fantastic, thank you.
Wow.
So Kate, how do you take it from 14 people in a room to, as we've just seen, that sort of growing amount of subscribers, sort of over 12,000 or whatever? How did you make the move from this small room to this kind of big network now?
That's a very good question. I often ask. A lot of grit there, I would say. But the one thing I would actually, if I could go back a little bit, I'd like to echo the importance of storytelling, as Anna touched on, because I think that's crucial right now. And it's something that we obviously try and do with our own platform. And we try and make our films jargon-free and very accessible. We also have a feature whereby you can make your own personal collection. But I think you asked me how, and I think one of the lovely things that we've done is make it we include museums from all over the world, artworks from all over the world. So unlike Tate, we're not confined to just a Tate collection. So if you want to learn about something from the Rijksmuseum, it's there. If you want to learn something about MoMA, it's there. So how we did it, I'm going to a shout out to our incredible team. I looked at that show reel and I didn't realize we actually did it in the first weeks of lockdown, and our award for the world's best came in May. So the show reel now has to be updated, which is, and the membership numbers on there now, fortunately, have to be updated as well. But the thing that I do want to stress actually is for anybody who's thinking of making the move or who has a website, that is actually crucial. It's a bit like keeping the shop tidy, I guess. The website has to be attended to on a regular basis. So you have to think of it, I think, as a living thing. It does need care and attention. You can't just put a website up or have a final website and just say we're done. website, your website for, I'm going to say for your members, Freya, I think definitely needs constant refreshing. And something else I found helpful was reverse mentoring. So we were very lucky. We had a 25-year-old advise us on a lot of our strategy and social media. And the thing that she taught me was nothing these days is quite as constant, and this is pre-COVID, in terms of marketing and comms as it was, I'm going to say, Freya, in yours and my day. Things have moved on a little bit, and a 25-year-old will put something out there and we'll see if it sinks or swims. You and I perhaps are more traditional marketing people, and it is great to have your eyes opened up to possibilities, I think, and knowing that you can try an Instagram post. If it doesn't work, try something else. But I think above all, she did teach me that you have to always be very true to your brand values. And if you haven't had a chance to sort of rethink them, I mean, we rethought them earlier this year, and fortunately, a lot of them were the same. You can find them on our mission statement on our website. But again, now is a good time perhaps to go back to basics and see what it is that you love doing and what you do well. And I'm going to say where your customers come from, and how long they're spending on your site. Actually, data, sorry, Freya, I did want to say data. For anybody who's not using Google Analytics, the analogy I think is, trying to drive a car without knowing where the pedals are. Udemy, great cheap courses. Go for Udemy for any marketing, data analytics, any of that. I think data in this new online world that we all seem to be inhabiting for the time being is crucial. So
and I think, I mean, there's another sort of I love the car analogy. There's another one that I think, in terms of the website, one that I sort of look at is this kind of, you don't want to be a billboard in the desert. So you're quite right, you need to keep refreshing and reviewing, but what about everything that directs the traffic? So you know, how important, and I think you'll both give very different answers to this, is social media in kind of building awareness of your brand. And I'm going to start with Anna, because as it's an app, it's probably a slightly different answer, maybe a pre and post COVID answer. Anna.
Yeah, I mean, so we always think of Smartify as kind of a tool, you know, it's kind of the WhatsApp or the Netflix or the, you know, it's kind of a platform for getting to something. And so up until this point, I have to be honest, you know, we've never really focused on social media as our kind of key way to acquire users. We acquire users through partnering with museums, and then kind of, you know, when you walk into the National Gallery, you see a big sign that says Smartify is, you know, is used here, download the app. And we also promote their content, you know, in our social channels. We don't kind of have a kind of direct content strategy in terms of, you know, Smartify, because it's more about getting people into the app and then them using that tool. That said, obviously social media is really important, but, you know, for us it's about kind of promoting the content that's within Smartify basically, and kind of pulling people into that platform.
And presumably as well, because it's so much kind of based on the partners that you have, that a lot of your awareness is built on those partnerships and that kind of sharing and building awareness together, presumably, for Smartify.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been thinking recently, you know, as we grow, because there's so many different types of content and different kind of almost bubbles of interest within Smartify now. You know, at a certain point, Netflix stopped having one central account, and they have, you know, multiple accounts for people who are interested in horror, for people who are interested in, you know, romantic comedies. And so they actually have all these kind of separate sub communities. And I think, you know, it's kind of what Kate said in terms of it's really important to have kind of build on a real community and kind of connect with them, you know, and kind of make sure that you're kind of meaningfully connecting with them. So I would rather have lots of smaller accounts with smaller numbers than kind of one big one that doesn't really know what it is.
Okay, no, a great answer. And Kate, what about you in terms of social media and into how disciplined are you? Be honest, how disciplined are you all at doing it, and how important do you think the functionality is?
I think it's crucial these days. And I think for the same reason, I mean, thinking of your members, so much business is done in person at fairs. And I'm going to say there is a reason it's called social media. It is a social channel. And I agree with what Anna said. It has to be meaningful connections. And also I would say, don't go by the numbers. because if you have Instagram for business, you'll actually know how many people are going to your website or going to your profile. So it's not that you only have 6 likes. If you only have 6 likes and 3 of them go to your profile or your website, I think you're doing really well. So that's the first thing. Social for us is key. Social Instagram is key. We've seen changes in the last 8 months. We're trying to inject a little bit more humor in it. We received a shout out for social telling us that we did art, humor, and wisdom, which I thought was a very nice compliment during, it was a newspaper article. But the thing I would also want to say, like Anna, I was going to say collaborations are also key, particularly on social. So I know we partnered with, I'm going to say LAPADA, and with English Heritage over lockdown in particular. And pay attention to social. I think it's one of the very first things that people who work in a visual arts field go to. They go to look at your Instagram platform above, firstly, I'm told, before going to your website. So for me, Instagram is crucial. Sorry, Anna, we're going to disagree on that. I'm agreeing everything else you said, but social for us.
I agree. I think it's just it's something that where we've kind of pivoted almost in the past few months over lockdown as well, whereas before it was less important. I think for us now, it is really important.
Yeah, it's coming up there very much. So Freya, we lost Freya for a second.
I think so, yeah. So maybe
she may be answering the door. She said she might have to go answer the door. So hang on. Yeah. Jillian, Freya. Well, any other tips you'd have in terms of social? Yep. Any other? I mean, I'm trying to think in terms of social. I would say scheduling apps are key. I would say also, I didn't mention it earlier, we found Hotjar as a website analytics platform incredibly useful, because you can see in real time where your customers are going. So you can see if somebody's clicking on one thing and coming off it quite quickly. It's a little bit Big Brother-ish. It's a slightly odd feeling to watch where your customers are going. And we don't do it often, but if anybody is curious about that, I'd highly recommend taking a look at Hotjar, which has a free trial, I believe.
I'm going to do
You're
that.
back.
Yeah, I'm back. I can't show you my face at the moment for some reason. Gillian, I think you might have to help with that, but I don't, obviously Zoom is not our friend today. I don't know what is happening, but I'm sorry that I missed some of that. Anyway, one of the things I was going to ask you, which is perhaps a bit unfair because it's taking you out of your territory, but given that our audience are a mix of both some members, but also quite a lot of attendees at fairs and things, what's your perception of how art and antiques are sort of sold and presented online? Because as you say, you know, for us, or for the majority of our members in our world, over about 60% of their business is done traditionally at fairs and face-to-face. So that has had a complete U-turn, and sort of 95% is done online. And there was a small percentage when the shops were open momentarily for them. It's obviously different values and everything online, and I just wonder, what could we learn from some of the businesses like you, and how do you think art and antiques are sort of currently presented and sold online? And I'm going to start with Anna, because Kate, you obviously were chatting when I came in, so I'm going to start.
Oh, you know me, I chat. Okay. Chatter.
Yeah, so I think one of the problems, I mean, we were talking about social, and I do think obviously Instagram is so important, but I think one of the problems with Instagram is that it's so hard to get kind of the algorithm to favor you and to get kind of noticed by people. So even though there are so many, particularly in the art sector, people kind of on there browsing, looking for inspiration, it's actually very hard to kind of break through. And one of the trends that I'm seeing, and I don't know if this will increase, is the power of TikTok, which is, I'm seeing a lot of artists selling directly online via TikTok, and actually the TikTok algorithm, for better or worse, is a lot better at surfacing new content that was interesting to you. So I think that's an interesting development in the sector in terms of actually its ability to match people with new discoveries. I think that will continue, particularly as just the growth of AI in all sectors is going to be really, really important. Another thing I noticed recently was, I've always been kind of following the Samsung TV, the Frame TV, which shows artworks in your home. I always think that's a very interesting idea, and they recently launched this kind of missing masterpieces exhibition, which is kind of all the works in the world that have kind of gone missing, and you can have them streamed on your as artworks on your TV. And I think that's just a really interesting future kind of growth area as well, potentially, because it's already built into people's homes and into people's kind of lifestyles. And in the same way, at the end of the day, you have this habit where it's just like, oh, I'm just going to go and scroll through Netflix to see what's there, even if there is a particular film you want to watch, but you just kind of end up scrolling through it anyway. And I think if we can build some of those habits in the art world, where it's kind of like I switch on my Samsung TV or I go, those kind of habits we need to build, because at the moment I think Instagram is so cluttered, and it's only with the new features that you've seen, probably, I don't know if they've launched in, sometimes they do A/B testing, but I've got a whole bunch of new features in Instagram this week, and it's just getting more and more cluttered as a platform, and I think it's losing people.
I love both those two examples. One is I've now kind of got a vision of having Isabella Stewart Gardner's missing masterpieces in my home. That's quite amazing. But with TikTok now, I've seen lots of children use it. I've seen some friends. I've also seen the Uffizi using it very effectively, and they obviously had an amazing time with it. But I haven't seen any of our members or dealers use it yet. So if they were going to step into that world, how should they start without, to make it amusing and fun, but without making an entire fool of themselves?
I imagine most of your members probably have their shops already, brick and mortar shops. So I think it's just about behind the scenes, showing what's in the shop daily, literally that simple, or showing items that are sale, just literally putting that kind of content on there, because you're right. It is a very young audience at the moment, but it's growing. It's definitely growing. And the power of that algorithm is such that it may actually have better conversion than Instagram. I think it's something to test. I threw it in there mainly as a challenge. I think it's something to test.
I absolutely love it. I really want to see one of our members sort of doing, behind the scenes, but I'm hoping with music and actions. I can actually see there's a lot of, given that our world is a world of storytelling, there's a lot of performers amongst the gallery owners. And so Kate, over to you in terms of you've actually even been on our selection committee a few times, so I know the fairs and some of the shops and galleries very well, so the physical presence. But I think it's hard, that it's fantastic to watch a stand or come together at a fair, which gives opportunity to do something slightly different. But I think online it's harder for people who are so aesthetically driven by the material to maybe emulate that online. So what do you think about sort of art and antiques and how they're presented online, and can you give any sort of tips to how they could do it better?
Well, I'm going to say that is the $64 million question, isn't it? The thing is, with antiques, this is the thing. With antiques, it is all about the 3D nature. It is the patina of the wood, the mother of pearl. It's seeing something. It's seeing something. Quite frankly, you want to touch and reach out and sense the history when you're in front of whatever the object is. And I think it is the thing that people are missing most these days. And certainly it's the hardest thing, I think, to convey online. And I'm going to say something a little controversial. I am the first person to admit that there is no way you can have that experience, that very same experience online. You're never going to be able to touch the legs of the wooden chair you're considering. But I think we have to look, or we're certainly thinking about other options for that. So, and I know this is going to send shudders through a few people, but what they're doing with virtual reality and augmented reality right now is extraordinary. And the idea that you can put a frame around a painting so that it matches your clients' frames in their own home. There are all these new developments that are absolutely staggering. And I'm thinking perhaps from a sales point of view, I'll digress a second. I think antique dealers are some of the best storytellers around. I think, as you've just said, such great stories to tell, and all the ones I know, do it so beautifully.
Yeah.
And I am going to say, I am the child who was dragged around antique shops at the age of 5. I mean, I was thinking from a very young age, and I still remember all these years on, seeing a round table, perfectly round, with drawers all the way around it, and wondering, what it was for. I'd never seen a table like that had, built-in drawers essentially. And I still remember the dealer explaining to my parents that it was a rent table where tenants on an estate exactly would put their monthly payment into a drawer around the table so that the landowner could collect, the money. And the idea that a story like that could stay with me all these years later, I think, as Anna said about TikTok, I think some of the dealers getting onto TikTok and just explaining some of the objects that they love so much is going to be interesting. I did see that Sotheby's, we actually did something on TikTok just for fun. We did a Stand By Your Man, I think it's Dolly Parton, the country song, and we had great works of art next to, Arnold Feeney portrait. We had men and women together and Standing By Your Man. So we had a bit of fun with that. But I think AR and virtual reality, I think those are going to be key. I think the thing also to remember about this new world, yes, it's taken a lot away in terms of being in the room with the object, but with viewing rooms, you have a 24/7 live audience. And you can reach so many people who may not come to the fairs, but there is that option now. So I'm trying to be very positive about all this. There are possibilities.
Yeah, and actually we're working with someone who is doing amazing kind of not exactly VR, but sort of augmented reality of scanning the shop so that you can kind of, with a drone, you go from the outside to further in, right into the object, and can do the 360. So and that's really effective. And we've had a few members who have trialed that so far, and it's fantastic.
It sounds amazing. The other thing that I think we're going to see a little bit of a trend towards is recreating the objects in situ from when they were first made. So I don't know if you're thinking about 17th century, 18th century, 19th century rooms, and seeing the pieces you're considering, seeing what they were first used for, and then transmitting it into 21st century and seeing how it would fit in your own collector's home. I think that's going to be something very interesting to see as well.
I love that idea. And then Edward Bulmer, interior designer like him, could then kind of do your entire home to get it back to an 18th century or 17th century look. I love it.
Something.
Yeah. So just, I mean, we're sort of all stuck. I'm sorry that I still don't seem to be able to show my face. So, now I could be doing anything, but anyway, I'm still here. So just looking at this sort of, I suppose the impact of COVID really for the art and culture has been this hyper acceleration of moving online. And I wonder, how much of this do you think will stay? Do you think that lots of sort of the art fairs will continue having a hybrid of an online and a physical presence? Or do you think one will become more important than the other as kind of old habits that die hard? Because as you say, the art world is a very sociable world. There is much time spent with a kind of a glass of champagne and saying hello to somebody. And so Anna, sort of starting with you, what do you think the new landscape will look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be a hybrid experience going forward. And as Kate said earlier on, I really don't see a future where digital is kind of more important or kind of the only thing that we have over a physical visit, particularly in this sector. I said at the beginning, with Smartify, our goal was always to kind of bridge the physical and the digital and help with kind of the marketing before, during, and after. So if people scan something, we spoke about analytics, the fact that you know that they've engaged with that, and in real time you can see, okay, they've clicked to buy something from the shop. So kind of just connecting it up is, I think, the key thing. And whether that's through kind of the different platforms that you use in those analytics is going to be really important. But then realizing then that the physical experience has to be something different to what you can just get online. So it has to be more social, and I think with museums, for example, we are seeing kind of a change in how they're thinking about the future of what people do in the museum space. It would be more about kind of those social experiences, events, visiting with other people, having kind of school workshops. All of those kind of things will become even more important, I think, because there will be more and more things that we can do online.
And Kate, what do you think in terms of the preview, because I think that both galleries and fairs have subsisted on this sort of the idea of the preview that's got more and more intent, different levels. Do you think that that will continue in the same way, or do you think there could be a sort of an online element to that, which gives people a sort of pick of the cherry, and then they just actually can have the social event when they go to the fair? Or
I think, as Anna said, it will all certainly change. I do think people are craving art right now, and to see art. I think there will be more of a return perhaps to local visits, local visitors. I think museums and fairs should look towards perhaps their community, because I think those are the first people that are most likely to return. I think people will be hesitant to fly for some time yet. I'm guessing. I mean, as I said, the beginning of lockdown, we were making in March, we were making very different predictions completely. But I do think that fairs will certainly continue. Who knows about the staggered VIP openings? I think there probably will be something in tandem. I think it definitely will be a hybrid model going forward. But I think people, particularly antique dealers, particularly fairs, I think people miss their clients become friends. And you do miss seeing people. And I think it surprised me. I think I was awful to say, I was all right for the first couple of months for the first lockdown. And then the third month, it really, really hit me how much I was missing going to a gallery. I mean, we were paddling furious at that point, you know, with huge volumes. We saw a mega rise in our online visitors to 400%. So we were very busy during the beginning of the first lockdown. And then it did hit me how much I missed going to galleries and seeing things. So
yeah. I have to say though, as an observation, I did go and see, so in that interim period, I managed to see some exhibitions, and, you know, obviously what is difficult for museums is their revenue is now predicated on trying to give access as many people as possible. Yeah. But it was such a pleasure to have these socially distant visits with only a certain amount of people allowed in the museum at any one time, going around the National Gallery and being able to, you know, see everything in your own time and only having a few other people in the room was a pleasure that I haven't sort of experienced for quite a while. So there was an opportunity there, and I don't know whether there might be some elements that are done that are creating smaller niche events for audiences. Yeah. Obviously, I know patron groups already do that, but maybe there's a way of sort of the hoi polloi might be able to have a little bit of that sort of level of access as well. Just before we've got a couple of questions, and it's coming to an end, but before we go there, I wanted to ask you both the question. So you're so right. I think that one of the things that has been very difficult for people is, you know, they miss the contact with each other, but they also miss the contact of art, and maybe that's because it stirs something in our emotions and also gives us a different kind of proximity. And I wondered if, you know, what you would both recommend in terms of content. So I'm going to start first with Kate on London Art Studies. To fill that cultural COVID vacuum, what should I look at? What should I go to make me feel better?
Well, then you are in luck. We have an LAS choice, which is the team's personal favorites on the website. And at the very beginning of lockdown, we actually made all these videos free of charge. So anybody can look at those videos free. I mean, I should have mentioned our subscription. Unlike Smartify, we are a subscription site. We are $8.99 a month. And we have been called the Netflix of the art world. So people do dip in and dip out to watch films. I think we've noticed people returning to the classics, especially over the last month. So people, and also we can always see upturn when new exhibitions launch. So Artemisia, obviously, when that launched here in London, a lot more people went to that video that we have on the site just to learn a little bit, either in advance of their visit to the show or because they couldn't get to the show. So a personal favorite is Kiki Smith. Oh, I can't pick favorites. My lecturers will all be mad. But I didn't know that Adam, as in Adam and Eve, had a first wife. So that was very interesting. I'm trying to think. We have a terrific series called Dangerous Women, which
I like your Dangerous Women.
I love Dangerous Women.
I'm partial to that, yeah.
Well, it came out of a course we ran called Great Tarts in Art, which doesn't translate internationally. So Great Tarts in Art becomes Dangerous Women, and some wonderful Gainsborough, lovely, lovely films on that. We also have The Art Market. We released the last 5 episodes of it with Georgina Adams. So she's talking about everything you need to know about the art market, which is terrific. I could go on about all our favorite series. Reflections, Then and Now, also a great one, but where we compare works of the art of the past with the present. We've got great works. So if you wanted to know why, I don't know, why Mona Lisa is the most favorite artwork of all time, go to that video. I love all our content, and it's a real credit to our team that they've managed to put together such terrific content. I don't know, Freya, are you back? I see Anna there. Okay, I've gone on.
I have
Anna.
to agree with you. I mean, I love London Art Studies. I'm a subscriber as well, so I fully agree. There are some amazing speakers, and it's well worth it. So definitely check that out.
Thank you. Thank you. I love Smartify too, and you know that I'm a Smartify person. So
from my side, I think I mean, while Freya's gone, I'll just shout kind of from Smartify what might be fun to check out. I definitely recommend the What's Gallery audio guides. They're fantastic. So all of our guides in the app are kind of, well, most of them are audio focused, so you can listen to them kind of like a podcast, and then, you know, they also transfer to, when we're able to get back into museums, you'll be able to kind of follow through as well at the same time, the different rooms, but they're very much kind of, you can listen to them at home. In terms of kind of other types of experiences, something a little bit different is our Ray Harryhausen exhibition. Obviously, Ray Harryhausen's the stop motion animator from Clash of the Titans and kind of all these amazing old movies. The National Galleries of Scotland had a fantastic exhibition of his sculptures and his sketches, and we created a little kind of augmented reality skeleton that you can fight, bringing that kind of classic Clash of the Titans skeleton into life. So I would definitely check that out. You can fight him in your living room. So I think that's a fun one and something a little bit different.
Thank you so much. I'm really sorry. It just kicked me out again with that. Still you can't see me. I could be wearing anything and doing anything now. I am so sorry. I'm just going to see, did you answer some of the questions then? Did Gillian just
Nope, she just finished. I haven't asked any ones yet, but
okay.
So first we'll start, this one is for you, Kate. How do you and your team determine kind of what new content to add weekly, or what guides your new content?
Well, it's a great question. We try and tally it with exhibitions opening around the world. So, or birthday. We had Bronzino's birthday last week, so we released a Bronzino video. But in terms of new content that we film, the ideas come from pretty much everywhere. So we have 2 new series next year launching quite early in the year. Best of British, because we decided there wasn't enough British art on the website. So we're doing a run through of British art from 1500. And we're also doing something called Outrageous Objects, where we look at some of the wilder things throughout art history that have intrigued. But generally, it's in terms of releasing content, we always try and make it very topical. And there is a space on our website for members where we have an In the World This Week roundup, where people can see what's going on. And if they're local, they can go and see it. We send out newsletters weekly, so we also have roundups there for people to hear what's going on around the world. Even if we can't visit, we think people like to know. So.
Thanks. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And then Anna, this one is for you. Obviously, a lot of your big partnerships are with museums, which depend on visitors in the gallery to be scanning art. So with the lockdowns and all new COVID restrictions, have you, even though you're already an online business, have you kind of had to pivot and find new ways of managing these partnerships?
We've had, actually, I think like all digital businesses, we've had a lot of growth even with museums being closed, because people are looking for places to kind of be inspired and have kind of, you know, to get kind of digital content about art. So we have a lot of students using the app. So for example, even if you scan a picture in a book of an artwork, it will still identify it and pull that information from the correct museum database. So we have a lot of people kind of using it as a revision tool to kind of get all their favorites together. So that's still happening. And then of course with our kind of guides, again, you know, people want to access those just kind of for educational resources at home. So yeah, overall it's still been a kind of increased user base for us this year. And in terms of kind of what we're working on for next year, it's helping museums to, and anybody, you know, galleries and antiques dealers, anyone who kind of has art stories, creating that platform for them to kind of be able to have those kind of virtual classrooms and events. You know, just that's that kind of next step to help museums kind of generate different revenue streams, basically.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have one final question before I let you go, because you've very generously given us your time today, but also you've given us lots of things to, you know, in terms of storytelling and content, to lose ourselves in during these kind of lockdown months and giving us access to the art. So what do you go to keep yourself sane? Starting with Kate for that.
Well, knowing that you know me, I'd say sanity. I'm going to question the question. It has been, I will admit, to 18-hour days pretty much since the beginning of lockdown. We really, as Anna said, digital, we are under pressure. And I think with everybody else launching online, we're also looking at our own output and our own content as well. So a lot of thought has been going on over the last 8 months or so. So basically, that was a long preamble to explain the most rubbish television in the world. I have to say, I love, and I'm going to highly recommend it. It's Nashville, the TV series. I think it's 6.
Okay.
It got me through. And it was actually also the inspiration for our Stand By Your Man Instagram post, which did clock up, I think, 7,000 or so views. So Nashville TV series. I wish I could tell you I did yoga. I wish I could tell you I made sourdough bread. Sadly, a total failure on both of those. But Nashville, the TV series, gets my vote.
And maybe a glass of wine too. With
possibly, yes. I wouldn't say no. Definitely not. A very nice glass.
And Anna, what about you?
Yeah, actually, unfortunately, the same as Kate. I think everyone who works in digital has just been so completely frazzled this year. It's been madness for me. Like a treat is just switching from my desk to the sofa.
And lying there, exactly.
But the second lockdown has really been, you know, it's definitely been difficult in terms of that. You know, I think the first one was more about making cakes and things, and now it's definitely just trying to push through to Christmas, I think, for everybody. But you know, going for walks like everybody else, having a takeaway coffee, I think that's the only pleasure of.
It's huge. That's a treat. That is a mega treat these days.
Yeah.
Freya, did we lose you?
I think we've lost Freya.
I'm so sorry about all the IT issues today. This is actually the first webinar that we've had these IT issues, so I do apologize. But thank you both so much for your time today. I think that was a really interesting discussion, and hopefully all the participants are now are about to go to your websites and watch that free content that you said, Kate, and download Smartify. And yeah, we'll post the recording of this on our YouTube channel if anyone wants to check back and rehear those links. But yeah, thank you so much for both of you joining us. It really was a pleasure. And we also want to say thank you to Cultural Comms, who our PR agency, who we work in partnership with these on. And yeah, thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.